It was a particularly wet and dreary Wednesday, and I had nothing better to do than peruse the family library. The Marsh family's collection was unsurprisingly vast, and the largest room in the mansion by far. I'd told my mother I'd start considering options for my future, and she gave me a semester worth of time to make a decision. I didn't particularly want to attend a university. You see, there wasn't a topic I had any real inclination to study, and besides, I was far more drawn to all of the mysteries that had unraveled within the last year. The summer prior, I would have been happy to blather about the evil town council conspiracies, and the monsters clearly lurking in the woods, but I never would have believed in those boogeymen myself. It was just an imaginative escape. Until, well, it wasn't. Of all the options for my future, joining the family business seemed the most lucrative. I just wasn't fully sure what that entailed. See, both my mother and father had always been tight-lipped about this sort of thing. When I was 11, I'd asked my father, and he'd told me I would get my answers on my 18th birthday. When he disappeared 3 years ago, my interest in the family's dealings and a future in the adult world had gone with him. Still, I'd picked up a few bits and pieces from my mother. We had a series of investments, some generational wealth, and currently my mother, sat on the boards of 2 major companies, one in New York and one in Portland. Explains why she's often not around. I think we've also just both been procrastinating this talk unconsciously. It was easier to forget my dad sometimes than have him looming over us as a specter that will never receive closure. When she finally returns from her exciting adventure in New York, I didn't want to be completely unprepared. What kind of old and wealthy family doesn't have some kind of history book on themselves anyway? Or at least that's what Michael had told me when I'd asked for some advice. And so that's where I was, and what I was doing. Mindlessly biding my time, searching away until... Marsh? Finally, some progress. Come here, you. Whoa. On the bottom shelf of a mahogany bookcase, situated in a dimly lit sprawl beneath the library's second-floor balcony, sat 3 thin books buried at the center of a collection of medical textbooks. The middle book had just one word printed on the spine for identification: Marsh. It was in tiny print, too. The others had none. I reached out to take it and was met with a surprise. They weren't books at all. It was a single construct with the frames of 3 books bound together. Each was tightly stuck together so as to be unopenable. Behind them lay a much bigger surprise. Carved into the wooden wall behind the bookcase was a depression with some kind of circular mechanism. It vaguely reminded me of a keyhole, but one that needed the right object to fit. I sat and thought for a minute about what it could be or what it might fit. I nearly slapped myself when I came to a realization. I'd been unconsciously playing with my locket, the one I'd recovered in January from the secret room on the 2nd floor of the West Wing. Each time I'd bathed, I'd taken it off and briefly tried a random 8-digit combination. My attempts had led me nowhere so far. It certainly had never dawned on me that it might have alternate uses. But the mechanism was also a pentagon and of similar width to fit the locket. Alright, maybe there's finally a use for you after all. Just gotta slide it in right and there. That's an awfully tiny lever. Well, let's give it a push, shall we? Holy hell, that's pretty groovy. Another secret room. Well, if there's 2, there's probably more to find. Can't really make out anything inside. Just a peek shouldn't hurt. Then I can go and grab a flashlight. The Eastmouth podcast is written, produced, and engineered by DC Tullis. Based on the world created by DC and JD Tullis. And there you have it, folks. Oberstein & Sons Grocery has a deal on hot dogs, hamburgers, and other cookout supplies that will really rock your summer. There isn't a better place in town. In fact, there isn't even another grocery in Eastmouth anyway, so get it while you can. So, folks, the town's been abuzz about a lot lately. There was the disaster at the Lighthouse Festival last Friday, and just over the weekend we got a new bit of drama. A ship shrouded in mystery returned to the harbor. From what I've heard, old Captain Beauregard set out on a privately funded voyage with a skeleton crew, and nobody has heard a pip from him since. Well, on Saturday night it seems that he returned to town. He hasn't been seen since, but his boat is all beat up, and the lights in his old house on Willow Way are now lit. Guess the old ghost house finally got its neighbor back. Awfully spooky stuff. Well, I think it's about time that we open up for calls. What do you say? Naturally, caller already. How you doing on this cozy Monday evening?
This Captain Beauregard. I was there the day that he did take up that there crow and set off in the night.
Great to hear from you, Burt. I'm sure the listeners would love any update that you can provide.
Was at the Pig Leg Pub. Rickety old shack. Had a table to myself and my Sammy when this captain feller first in talking about finding gold. Seemed real confident too.
Interesting. What happened next?
Well, there was a brawl. Came out of nowhere. I'm doing my best to keep me Sammy safe from some goon who was brawling with Xavier.
Xavier, of all people.
Oh, yeah. A nasty feller. But that there captain sat down with two grungy-looking sailors, and I reckon they all lived together. Spent many a night at the Peg Leg. Better drinks than that swill at the Lorelei. Haven't seen them there since.
So, you think they departed by ship that same night? Is that correct?
I ain't sure. But I know a feller who knew a feller whose brother knew the captain. I'll gab around and see what I can dig up. Like to stay up to date on the happenings of the sea.
Well, keep us posted right here at the station. I'm sure the townsfolk would love to hear how this progresses.
Where'd the rest of the bottle go? Shame. Good to speak with you again, Sonny.
An interesting development, I'd say. You heard it here first, folks. All right, it seems we have another caller. You're live and on the air with Obediah, Marsh, and the good folks of Eastmouth.
Hello.
How's your evening, caller? Do you have something to add about the spooky old captain, or the disaster at the festival?
That gossip? Hogwash, I say. You see, I'm an esteemed professor of English literature, and I am presently visiting my family.
Okay.
Yes, well, I'm also a bard, if you can't tell. A musician at heart. I can pluck a tune with my lute that would make many a maiden's heart flutter. Would you allow me on your show so that I can play for an eve? Oh, I do love radio ever so.
I'll think about it. Okay, is that all, caller?
No. Wait. still a matter of a certain maiden of whom the most beautiful eyes, fair skin.
Hey, hello?
I awoke with a start and a pounding headache. A reflection of the broadcast 2 days prior was floating about in my skull, most likely a fragment of some dream. Something about it felt off, wrong even. But then the sensation began to fade and whatever had concerned me slipped away with it. The room was pitch black. Evidently, the bookcase had sealed behind me. Even worse was the fact that I'd foolishly left the locket in the keyhole. I carefully began to crawl around the space, feeling for a light switch or a lamp. There was a stale reek to the room that threatened any breathing. Certainly, it had not been actively used for at least the better part of a decade. To my right, my fingers slid across a series of dusty shelves. Each felt just as empty as the last. There was nothing but a wooden wall to my left. It seemed the width of the room was maybe 8 or 9 feet. After crawling around for nearly a minute, I found my hands wrapped around another texture. A rough cloth of some sort. Almost like a tarp rather than a blanket. It covered something large and oblong, maybe 5 feet in width. I rose to my feet carefully and began to remove the cloth. With one firm tug, it was pulled over the front of the object, and I stretched out my right hand to touch what it had covered. I felt glass, and yet not just any sort of glass. It felt almost warm to the touch. Maybe not in the way that nearing a campfire on a summer night would, but more like touching the edge of a warm bath, dipping your fingers into it slowly, being wary not to burn yourself if you drew it too hot. And then I was no longer imagining the bath. It must have been an illusion, as I felt my fingers enter through the warmth of the glass. Suddenly, a bright turquoise hue lurched out from what proved to be a mirror and briefly illuminated the room. And then I fell forward, or rather I was pulled forward, falling, faster. I couldn't breathe. It was all so bright, this blinding whirlpool of color. Faster, forward, faster.
Holy shit. Holy shit. Deep breath. Deep breath. All right. Deep breath. That was a mirror. And check. That's also a mirror behind me. Add portals to the list of absurd things I would not have believed possible just a year ago.
I felt like puking, knocking someone out and driving off of a cliff all at once. Adrenaline and nausea washed over me, like a typhoon hitting a kiddie pool. Where I'd ended up was strange, to say the least. I'd seen photographs of the way French royalty lived in the 18th century. I'd also seen photographs of vibrant tea rooms in the 19th century. It was both at once, and yet neither at all. Bookcases wrapped around the entire room. There was no discernible door to leave out of, or windows to tell the time of day. 2 lengthy coffee tables sat adjacent in the western half of the room, while a monstrously large table took nearly the entire width of the eastern side. Each housed ornate chairs with quilted padding and intricate wooden designs that looked as comfortable as expensive.
I'm not dreaming, right? Well, my tongue is bleeding now, so I think I'm awake.
Of all the marvels in that room were these floating orbs of light, lowered by a string-thin stretch of metal. Each cast a warm orange glow. It lit the room in the same way that it would be if there were some invisible stone fireplace. A series of paintings and photographs hung above the bookcases on each wall. Now aware that I wasn't dreaming, I began to wander around. Some of the books on the vast array of bookcases were written in languages that I'd never heard of before. There was something funny about several of the portraits, too. A few of them were gaunt old men nearing a 7-foot stature. And if my tongue wasn't bleeding, I wouldn't have been so certain of what I saw. But I could swear that each had pointy ears. They reminded me of the dissolving body that Victoria and Caleb had dug up in that anonymous grave last fall. As I sat at the edge of the largest table, deciding whether to puke or to keep it in, I spied a leather-bound book with a letter perched on it at the head of the table. I made my way over and picked up the letter upon sitting down. To Obediah, or the next of his kin that finds this.
Dad? It is unlikely that I have made it back from my journey with Ashen. If you are reading, you may presume that I, Zachariah Samuel Marsh, am dead. You must have many questions. The first time that I experienced portal walking, I certainly did. As my plans to bring Obediah up into the family traditions were cut short, it is most likely that you discovered this gift by luck. It has been present in our bloodline since the days in which men still hid in caves. Our family, among a few others, made contact with the Fae, and they gave us this gift. Pretty sure that Victoria said Kent or Burt had called them that, the builders of the laboratory. They left certain mirrors with us that can be activated by touch and intent. A door is briefly opened into the beyond, and when you emerge, you come upon somewhere else entirely. I'm running out of ink, it seems. The book below you is my journal, though it hasn't been actively used in a long while. Let it open your eyes to the Marsh family, a perspective on the Watchers as recorded by a younger version of myself, and ultimately to our relationship with the Fae. I must go now. I have much to prepare for. It is my hope that this journal will serve you well. Take care. May we meet in this life or the next.
I didn't know how to process it when I'd found the letter in my father's desk last winter, and I didn't know how to process this any better. It had been 3 years since I'd seen him, and here was a letter explaining that he was expected to be dead. How in the hell can you thrust that on your family? I still felt awful, but I opened the journal and began to scan through the earliest entries. My curiosity was unquenchable.
March 2nd. I wish to escape Eastmouth. I'd be following in the tail end of what they call the Great Exodus with such mournful glares, but there's nothing for me here. Father wishes that I and the others join his society. They claim to do great things and protect an important secret, but the specifics of which I know not. I have only one true friend here, Charles. We both secretly plan to enlist in the war when we can. I don't think Father would forbid it, but he may beat me if I admit to it. Maybe so, but I must try. I wish not to end up here rotting with our wealth. March 28th. A wondrous few things have all occurred in quick succession, and they have left me unsure on whether I truly wish to leave Eastmouth. The first is that woman Elizabeth. She has moved here from Connecticut to stay with her grandmother after a house fire claimed the lives of her parents. A tragedy, I can see it in her wistful eyes. She does not wish to show it, but she can't help it. Her grandmother belongs to the same society as my father and the others, so I pray that I may meet her again at another of their parties. I also met another face at that party. My father has long associated with that abnormally tall fellow. I must say that he more than succeeded in his subterfuge, for I was amazed when I met his son. Truly, I was unaware that they were not of this earth. Had I not been born here, it might have shocked me more, but this town never ceases with its share of oddities. His name is Eshin, and he is staying with his father while he wraps up his research. Of what it entails, I still know not, but he revealed to me the most wondrous secret of my bloodline: portal walking. He had brought a special mirror with him that allowed him to travel to foreign worlds if powered by a portal walker. Now, these mirrors only go to one set location at a time, but he had a device, almost like a music box in appearance, and it gave him the ability to alter that destination. Apparently, that feature is a rarity in these already rare mirrors. I was certainly skeptical at first, but after that most awful feeling of falling, we arrived on an ethereal beach. I thought my eyes deceived me when I saw 2 moons hanging above the pink waves. It was a secret that I could not keep to myself. Yesterday, I brought Charles through the mirror. He shared my skepticism till he beheld that same beautiful sight. When the 3 of us reconvened, I asked Eshin how many other strange and wondrous places he knew of. He did not know of as many as I had hoped, but he assured me that he would take up research in his father's study. Charles told us we must be cautious, and I know it is so, but I can't help but hunger for more knowledge, more strange and foreign beauty. We've decided to form a society of our own, hidden from our parents. The name has yet to be decided. April 2nd. I followed my father into a room that shouldn't exist. Hidden behind a bookcase in the library sits a mirror, much like Eshin's, but of a larger size. I thought I was in another world again till I heard the voice of my father. My attempt at stealth had clearly failed. He was not upset. In fact, he thought that me observing him enter the mirror had been my introduction into our Bloodlines gift. His story was much less detailed than Eshin's, but he told me that the room was built beneath the home's foundation as it was being laid.
Underground, eh? Better make sure to keep that mirror safe and sound.
I was allowed to use it if I did not tell my peers. I am sorry, Father, but that is a promise I cannot keep. This will be the home base of the Lodge of Travelers. If we are found out, I will likely receive another beating, but it is a risk that I am willing to take. April 21st. I've been stranded here since the storm came and collapsed the great spire into the courtyard. This world is dying. Bursts of lightning gradually destroy more and more of the castle. We should not have come here. The sun shines all the time despite the rain. It is a foul hue. All I have to eat while trapped in the rubble are these mushrooms that grow up from beneath the cobblestone. They smell sickly sweet and make me feel ill, but I'm so hungry. Charles and Eshin had warned me to hurry. Hopefully they've escaped this wretched world. I would not wish this fate upon them. April 24th? Unsure. Whoever reads this next, heed my corpse and leave this cursed world. April 28th. We are all quite fortunate that my father was away on business when this happened. Eshin had been working tirelessly to free me from the rubble. He broke through 3 days ago. I have been resting ever since. I am still weak, so it is difficult to write, but those mushrooms were poisonous in some way. The expression on Eshin's face was that of utter terror when he learned that I had been subsisting on them. They are not indigenous to that world. In fact, they can be found in several Fey worlds that he was aware of. Because of this, he also knew of an antidote, but one that might come at great cost. He made me swear a blood oath. A blood oath is an eternal promise of equal exchange. It is sacred upon his homeworld, and he swore up and down that violating it would result in death. I knew not how that could be, but I agreed to assist him if he ever invoked it. Upon our return, I slit my fingertip and let it bleed into a vial. Once that was finished, he left to procure the antidote and returned with a small pill several hours later. Had I not been lucky, the pill might have killed me before the illness. I still live and breathe. Hopefully, I shall fully recover soon. I do so miss Elizabeth.
And what's this? Little slip of paper? Okay, across the room, mahogany bookcase with rodent skull centerpiece. Look in the display glass. Alright, sure thing, Dad. Rodent skull. Okay. Wait. Jeez, Dad. Keeping a vial of your own blood in a glass case is a bit morbid, don't you think? Where were we?
May 9th. Charles invited Esmeralda to the lodge. She, in turn, invited another fellow named Timothy. He's a rather short man, but he has the courage and adventurous spirit of a chariot racer. I find it infectious. I do not think that Charles appreciates Timothy's presence. Charles swoons for Esmeralda, but she seems to have no interest in him. My heart would ache dearly if that were the case between Elizabeth and myself, but I pray it not to be so. We are leaving today on our first expedition as a party of 5. We will be far more wary after what happened in our last expedition. May 22nd. What a wondrous world we've discovered. Eshin has been spending many hours in his father's archives. There are many worlds that have been explored by the Fae since they ventured out into the stars hundreds of thousands of years ago. This world in particular has long since lacked any living inhabitants, at least any with legs and organs. The plant life seems to have reclaimed its great spires, each wrapped in velvet ivy. Golden vines hang from towering statues formed of nearly incomprehensible proportions. One could spend an eternity here and never grow tired of such beauty and architecture. We shall leave tomorrow, but Timothy wishes to return post-haste. He says he's never felt more at home than here. His behavior is a little odd, but it's only been our second expedition with him. Still, I share his enthusiasm for the beauty of this place. We will have a vote. May 23rd. A ball was thrown for the members of my father's society. Elizabeth was there once again. I believe I may be in love.
Another note. The framed photograph above the bookcase with the vial and the skull. Okay, and wow. Esmeralda was quite the babe. Timothy's about as I expected. Charles not so much. He can barely keep his loathing in when standing next to the guy. I wonder why Dad kept all of these up.
May 24th. Timothy has become utterly enamored with that gemstone jungle of a world. He writes poems of it, and Esmeralda paints him as he does so. Charles has been in truly a foul mood as of late. I believe it likely to do with Esmeralda, and so I've tried to talk to him. Her heart clearly does not beat for him, but there's a sense of jealousy still. Hopefully he recovers from this. This bitterness is driving apart our friendship. May 28th. He's dead. Timothy is dead. God help us all.
Wait, what?
May 30th. I must journal my thoughts now that we've come up with a plan. Charles stayed behind, but Timothy convinced the rest of us to return to that world. He had his gaze set on venturing to the top of the highest tower. It was a full day's trek navigating the ruins of what appeared to be an expansive religious convent for some unknown deity. As we neared the top of the tower, surrounded by decaying marble walls and balconies, Timothy appeared to be causing a physical reaction in the plant life around him. It was almost as if they shivered or squirmed at his presence. Eshin noted that it might be something of his mood or genetic history that could cause such effects, but was unsure as the Fae had not staged a recorded visitation of this world since it was reclaimed by the wilderness. Timothy seemed ecstatic as we reached the peak, and he peered out at the glorious view through a massive, stained glass window that had been broken clear in half. and then he slipped. Or rather, he stepped on a growth of plant life that recoiled at his presence and tumbled out of the window. I will resume tomorrow. May 31st. Timothy's parents are worried, but Esmeralda has informed them he mentioned running off to fight in the war. I do not think they will ever expect their son lies dead in a strange alien world. God rest his soul. June 8th. Esmeralda has departed from the Lodge of Travelers and plans to move to Chicago. With the death of Timothy, who she shared great feelings for, she believes there's nothing left in Eastmouth for her. Her family has been unable to console her, and neither have we. Charles also appears to be giving up the lodge with the departure of Esmeralda and the death of Timothy. His 18th birthday nears, and so he plans to join the Watchers and rid himself of any memory of our voyages or feelings towards her. Eshin keeps to himself much as of late. For the first time in many months, I feel lonely again. October 4th. I haven't felt much urge to journal in quite some time. My life is monotonous with the rare exceptions that I meet Elizabeth, who seems to travel between her grandmother's and grandfather's estates often. Eshin will leave tomorrow with his father to return to his home world. Since he has no use for it without me, he is leaving the mirror and the navigational device in my possession. I haven't the heart to use it again. The laboratory will now only be checked upon once every decade or so. It is claimed to be self-sufficient. I will miss him dearly. November 2nd. My 18th birthday is in 2 days, and I shall soon understand the remaining secrets of the Watchers. My father seems antsy. Maybe he has a surprise. September 19th. I have not used this journal in nearly a year. I imagine I will not use it again for some great time. I'm to be engaged to Elizabeth, and let it be known that I'm the happiest that I've ever been. August 18th, 1964. Hello, Obediah, or whoever of our bloodline finds this journal. I have met again with an old friend. Eshin, no longer the boy that I remember, but a military official, has returned to urge my help. His home world is struck with a civil war that threatens to destroy it in its entirety. He asked me to join his cause. Why, you may ask? Firstly, I am a portal walker. With his world under war, the gates there, similar devices to the mirrors, have become unreliable. The mirror, still in my possession, along with my bloodline, could prove a useful asset. Secondly, I am bound by that blood oath I made as a youth. It has more power than merely a simple promise. I have now seen that firsthand. I shall gather a few loyalists and set forth within the coming week. If this is you reading this, Obediah, know that I care for you deeply. Were there any better solution, I would have chosen it, but these things are never so simple with the Fae. I have written this as I am truly uncertain whether I will ever be able to return. If Eshin's battle is lost, then those of us on Earth may eventually see the consequences. Those consequences would cause our extinction. You are of the Marsh bloodline and have several wonderful gifts in your lineage. Whether you wish to partake in the folly of the Watchers is up to you. Its usefulness has long since been outgrown, and now outside groups help monitor the well. Those still present within the ranks of the Watchers have grown greedy and weak in their age and stagnancy. Our family founded the damned thing, and it's up to your discretion as to what its fate may be. Carve your own path, and waste no regrets in this life. I leave you now with the resources on the next page. Open the false bottom of the top drawer. It's in the same bookcase as before. Now heed these words. 1 key to the source, 1 box of power, 3 to each. Minerva's device. Handle with care to unscramble your strife. Take care now, and call these numbers if you get a bit lost.
Jiminy Cricket on a damn cracker. Okay, that's the drawer. Some more books and... Aha! What do we have here? A box, a key, and a thingy? And... shit, the box has the same mechanism on it. They took the locket. I need to think.
I had not woken up that morning, prepared to have my life shaken so thoroughly at the roots, but that is exactly what had happened. From my dad's disappearance to the Lodge of Travelers to the otherworldly beings that built the laboratory, it was a lot to process. My head still ached then, but the nausea had mostly subsided. I sat there and contemplated everything for nearly 5 minutes before a path forward started to form. I wasted no further time in that room. With the journal in one hand, I scoured the shelves for gear till I found something approximating a lantern. It was an orb that hung from a fastenable strap. As if sensing my intent, it lit up when my hand neared it. I attached it firmly to my right wrist, and with the journal tightly clutched in my left hand, I sat down next to the mirror that I had arrived in and waited for the warmth.
Fuck! Ugh. I think that is going to take some getting used to. It's still awfully dark, but I can see a bit now with that orb thingy. There's gotta be another way out from here. If I were building a secret room with a mirror portal in it, where would I hide the... Ah, I see it now. Emergency lever. Here we go. Come on. Come on. There we go. Oh, library, how I've missed you so.
I think I'm going to be sick.
I want to go again. I want to go again. And shut up, Caleb. It wasn't that bad.
So this is it. I almost find it hard to believe we're all under your house.
That's what you're struggling with? Not the fact that Obediah can drag us through time and space?
Welcome aboard to our new headquarters.
Headquarters for what?
Caleb, you've started submitting your photography to university scholarship programs. Victoria, you're shopping around for jobs to pay for tuition. Right here is my father's journal. All around us are a smattering of texts concerning the Watchers, the origins of Eastmouth, and its connections to the Fae. I need to know if it's even worth carrying the torch.
Whoa, dude. You're jumping from topic to topic here. What's all of this got to do with you, and what's all of this got to do with, us?
Discounting my mother, there's only one remaining member of the Watchers. Chuck. But he's elusive. My mother becomes deathly silent when I mention him or the well. It's like talking to a wall. I think she wants to let the society finally die.
Is that such a bad thing?
That's just the question. I don't know. All of you are free right now. You can choose your path. Go to school, join the military, or rob a bank for heaven's sake. But for me, until I figure out what was even worth protecting in the first place, I'm not going to be able to just move on. I'm in a rut, and that rut is my bloodline.
We might all be making decisions. And hey, some of those decisions might make us leave town. But don't think for a second we're going to abandon you in all of this. Michael here can consume all these books in a second. And if you need Vic and I to bumble our way into something, we can do it.
I genuinely appreciate that vote of confidence, Caleb. If it's in the best interest of the town, I'll find a way to resurrect the Watchers. And you'd all be starting members, whether you stick around here or not. I'd certainly appreciate a how to start a secret society guide, though.
don't think you'd find anything like that in any library near here, but one of these books might give you a clue. If there's a detailed enough history, you could try retracing their steps.
Okay, enough about secret societies and all that. What's with this box and mechanical clock, lock, plumbing doohickey?
My father left that stuff with a riddle and some unmarked phone numbers for me to call. I would have tried opening the box already, but it requires the locket, and I already told you how I foolishly had left it behind.
Man, after last March, I thought we'd be done with riddles and puzzles.
I'll reread it. One key to the source. One box of power, 3 to each. Minerva's device. Handle with care to unscramble your strife.
Way to start off simple. Give me the locket. We'll probably have a better idea of what's inside the box if we can open it.
Catch.
Open sesame!
It's empty. 3 vacant places for what looks like...
My ring!
Fiction!
Am I going crazy? Or did my ring just fly into the box?
And right under Charles's nameplate.
Where did you get that ring?
I dug it off Kent after he, you know.
Well, if it's the same Charles, and I imagine it is, given what you've told us, Obediah, then Kent must have taken it off his corpse.
So what does this all mean?
That these were clearly left here for a reason. I don't know about your mom, but I think your dad wanted you to find this stuff.
I think so too. It's going to take forever going through all of the books in this room, so why don't we start small? Hopefully one of those phone numbers will get us somewhere.
Could be old. Let's just hope they didn't get disconnected.
Or just go straight to a pizza place. Scratch that. Pizza would be a great clue.
Can't get me on land. Aye, that it cannot. Be safe and sound I'll be. Pretty as a picture. So pretty indeed. Yes, all right. Just another glass of brandy to keep those voices away. Just one more and everything will be all right again. Just another glass.